I'm Jennifer Riccinelli, editor of Stoneworld, and today I'm excited because I have some longtime friends and new friends, and we're going to have an exciting conversation about growing up in the fabrication business and then entering your career as yourselves as you got older. So today I am with Ron and Stephanie Hanna of Condensa Granite Marble, and I am with Buddy and Joey Ontra of Entrestone Concepts, which, Buddy, you recently retired from that, but you're still in the industry. And Joey, you're with Connecticut Stone. So I guess we'll start. I'll let you all start by introducing yourselves and telling us everybody a little bit about. Who would like to start?
Well, I'll go
Go ahead,
first.
Ron.
I'm Ron Hanna. I moved my family from Montreal, Canada to Charlotte, North Carolina in 1996. I came down here to be a general contractor. I was an industrial commercial general contractor up north. When I got to Charlotte, Charlotte was on fire. There was no available labor. Becoming a general contractor was just adding to the problem. So I thought, what can I do to be part of the solution? And well, granite and marble countertops was very new in 1996. I had some friends in Montreal that owned a small shop. The economy in Montreal was just in the toilet. And so what we did is we came up with a plan that I would sell and template here in Charlotte, send my templates up to Montreal, give them the work. We would load up finished kitchens into LTL transport trucks and send them back down to Charlotte. And we were, at the time, 40 to 50% less expensive than the four other guys doing granite and marble in Charlotte. So that's how Cadenza started. And then 5 years later, we had to make a decision because turnaround was becoming really important. Turnaround time. We had to make a decision, go all in or get out. Well, as you can tell, we went all in, and now we are in 20,000 square feet in Concord, North Carolina, between 12 and 18 employees, depending on what time of the year, and in our 30th year.
That's great. Congratulations. And you're just a testament to, sticking with it and being devoted and following a plan. And that's great. And how about you, Buddy?
Well, I got started by walking on a high-rise building in 1982 in Houston, Texas. I was a 19-year-old kid. A friend of mine, neighbor, whatever you call it, said, go check it out downtown. I walked on the job. The first person I spoke to said, I think the stone guys are hiring. Go find Pat. I found Pat, and he said, come back tomorrow wearing some boots. And I was in the helpers union. And then for the next 4 or 5 years, I worked on the high-rise buildings. What usually takes 4 years to get your journeyman book, I had it in like a year and a half because Houston was, as to quote Ron, on fire at the time. A lot of the Midwest had moved down there, and about 1984, 5, two of the fellows, two brothers that I had worked with on several jobs, opened up their own tile and and marble thing, and I tagged along with them. And started fabricating. We were wet sanding marble and polishing it up with oxalic acid and burlap. We didn't have those little 4-inch Alpha Ceramica type pads or anything like that. And we we would shine granite with tin oxide and lead wheels. And it was fireplaces. We'd make saddles for our tile jobs. Installed a lot of 12 by 12s. 1986, the market started to dry up. I came back up to Connecticut for a couple of family things, and ended up staying. I was installing tile out of a station wagon. Went to one of the 4 shops in Connecticut, and as my former boss used to say, 5 if you count rye marble. And that was Maselli marble. And I asked him, one of my tile customers wanted a fireplace, simple, 4-piece fireplace. And he said it's going to be about at least 2, if not 3 months to get it together. And I looked at him. I said, well, you need help around here? And he hired me on the spot. I then worked with him. That was 1986. I worked with him uh, through 2004, made an offer to buy it. Mark Maselli, who was the grandson, I had worked for the son, the grandson. The grandfather, Tony Maselli, would kind of go to the hardware store. He was retired. He'd, just kind of like wander around like like an old guy, and he would, to make the black marlite, he would mix the white marlite and melt it with lead powder. So that's how far back we're going, as far as for polishing, darker stones. But then when Mark had said, you know what, I got to think about it. I don't want to do it while my father's still alive or whatever. And I had given notice and then opened up my place and cut my first countertop in 2006. And, just kept the shop going until, we made a decision to sell it last year, 2 years ago.
Yep.
So,
And you're still involved, and you're still
yes, I'm
very.
doing consultation work. I'm doing peer-to-peer for fabricators on the safety front. I've been retained by attorneys on accident silicosis cases, project management. If a fabricator has a larger than normal job, I'll manage it on a per job basis, as so they can focus on the regular day-to-day stuff and not get so overwhelmed by something that might be larger than usual.
That's
So kind of mercenary work.
good. Well, both of you are veterans of the industry and you have quite a story. And now you have two young adults that are kind of following your footsteps, making their own tracks. So, Stephanie, I just laugh. I remember you telling a story about how little girls were playing with Barbies, and what were you doing?
My sister and I grew up on the weekends going to Cadenza's showroom, and we would sell each other the granite samples. So we would fill out the little sales questionnaires, and we would talk to each other about, I don't know if you've seen Uba Tuba, and we all had our favorite ones. And so we would, instead of playing with Barbies in the showroom, we were selling each other stone. And so we could say that I started working in granite sales when I was 7. But I grew up in a fab shop, and then when I was 18 or 19, I started an internship with Cadenza, and I'm still here.
The rest is history. That's great. That's great. And Joey, how about you? What are some of your earliest memories being in your dad's shop?
So I have some early memories from even before he had a shop. I used to go to work with him occasionally on the weekends, and there was this dust room, and I used to play in the dust like it was a sandbox. Now we know the health implications of that. Right. So, yeah, I mean, that's probably one of the earliest memories I have. They used to have this glue tower. I always thought it was like this great piece of art. And really, it's just garbage. Bunch of old glue. I always was like, oh, we could put this in an art show. And nobody ever thought that was a great idea.
That's great. So Ron and Buddy, did you see, did Stephanie and Joey, did you have hopes that you want your children to follow your footsteps and stay in the fabrication stone industry, or did you let them figure it out for themselves?
I would say I let her figure it out for herself, but I always had high hopes, and I still do. It's a hard sell, and she's playing tremendously hard to get. But I would love Cadenza to be a legacy company.
That's great.
We always want our kids to follow that way, but at the same time, as I had, we all had those struggles of the years with market and economy rises and falls and stuff. And, some years, my accountant would tell me I made, several $100,000, and I'd say, where is it? And then other years he'd say, you'd lost $200,000. And I'd be like, how did I do that? I haven't missed a meal all year, So, Joey went off to college. He thought about other other things like sports management. He sent applications out to the Mets and stuff, but we're avid fans and whatnot. But there was let them find their own way. But there was part of me that was like, yeah, well, let's see what we that we want them to be like us.
That's right. So, Joey, why don't you tell us a little bit about, your beginnings in the stone industry and what you're doing now?
Yeah, so I mean, really, when I began, I feel like I was in high school on the weekends in the summer times. Just kind of helping my dad after hours in the shop. He would have a couple of large projects, and when he just started out, he didn't really have a lot of people working for him, so he was kind of doing a lot on his own. I
Mhm.
remember some late nights during the week going to the shop and just eating Chinese food and trying to help him get a countertop done to had to go out the next day type of thing. And then, I went away to school. I tried a bunch of different things, and I came back and I decided, I really enjoy working with my dad and being in this industry, working with stone. I don't know, it's just fascinating to me. There's so many different types of materials and things, and I don't know, I just love it.
You're a lifer, like all of us.
Yeah.
So that's great. And now you're at Connecticut Stone. What is your role
Yep.
there?
So I am the interior sales representative here at Connecticut Stone. Um, I do a little bit of everything, not just interior. I do a lot of exterior stuff as well. Patios, bluestone, stone walls, gravel, all that kind of stuff. Um, Coming here was really a really interesting opportunity for me because I know the interior stuff really well. I've been doing that for 15 to almost 16 years at this point. So coming here, I'm able to expand. I'm able to learn all of the exterior stuff, veneers, cladding, all that kind of stuff. So I don't know, when I had this opportunity, my eyes kind of lit up a little bit because it is an opportunity to learn a lot more than just the typical interior countertops that we were doing.
Right, of course, it's expanding your role, and there's all different aspects, so that's great.
And
And
how
Steph,
many can say they worked for two different past presidents of the institute?
well,
So
there you go.
Yep. Yeah, there's that too. Yep.
That's great. And Stephanie, you said you started as an intern, so why don't you explain a little how your role has evolved and what you're doing now?
So yeah, when I was in college, I needed an internship for my accounting class. And so that summer, I think I was 18 or 19, I started bookkeeping for Cadenza as my summer internship. And then I just kept coming back every summer. And my knowledge of the company just grew and grew from there. I did some stuff on the project management side, I did some of the sales. And then after college, I just went straight to working full time at Cadenza. I did end up leaving the industry for a little bit because the stone industry was all I knew. I had only ever worked in the stone industry, and I wanted to take some time away and reflect if the stone industry, if I loved it as much as I thought I did, or if it was all I knew. So I left for a little bit, and then I've been back now for 5 years, I think. Back full time with Cadenza, and I'm on the sales side as well, specializing more in the commercial and high end custom side of things.
That's great. And I think it was smart that you step away to make sure, this is where you want to be. So that's
Yeah.
really great. Both of you, Ron and Buddy are very involved in the industry as well, volunteering their time, sharing their education. Ron was one of the starters, right? Executive directors of the SFA, Stone Fabricators Alliance. Buddy is past president of National Stone Institute. And I know you and Joey, well, that's how we really met and became closer on our trip last year with the Stone Fabricator Alliance. And Joey, I know you do things with the NSI. So how has watching your father so involved, did that inspire you to get involved as well? Because you don't see so many young people necessarily, which you guys are great examples.
Yeah, I mean, I really enjoy kind of watching my dad go through the whole process with the NSI and all the different steps of secretary to treasurer to vice president, president. It's been really interesting to see from that point of view, kind of from the back end. I've had the unique opportunity to see a lot of things that maybe some other people haven't been able to see, and just I don't know. I do really enjoy it. I enjoy all of the trips and stuff that they provide and the education. I think that stuff's kind of invaluable.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I
Definitely.
have to agree with Joey on that one. When thinking about like being part of the SFA, to me, that's a no-brainer. I've seen it from the other side of all of the educational opportunities that are there, and with like the SFA tour, all of the opportunities for networking. So for me, following in his footsteps to be a member of the SFA in particular has been like a no-brainer. And like I'll pitch that to everybody. I'm like, you should get connected within the industry because there's so many really smart people who are available to help if you ever have a question.
It's true. I mean, both groups, it's a great way to network, to share, experiences, challenges you're facing or solutions or so I think it's really great. And I think it's also great because you hear a lot about, I've sit in on panels and different sessions at trade shows and other industry events where there's shop owners and they're like their kids want nothing to do with what they're doing and who's going to take it over, and you have to have a succession plan. So Ron and Buddy, how do you feel that in the end Joey and Stephanie have decided to follow your path and make their own path as well, but just to stay in the industry?
Well, I think it's absolutely wonderful. One of the most rewarding things for me at this point is when Stephanie and I go to Marmomac, for example, seeing the relationships that she has cultivated with the players. When I say the players, I mean the movers and shakers of the stone industry know who Stephanie Hanna is, and that makes me so proud.
I agree. In fact, when I go to whatever show it might be, I get more questions about how Joey's doing than how I'm doing. So, what's he up to these days? Um, and both organizations. I was more involved with the MIA than Natural Stone Institute from the beginning. I think because I had a very good technical background, and I knew how to polish an edge, cut a stone, put an OG on, all of that stuff before we had all the fancy equipment. If I had been more of a business person getting into this industry, I likely would have gravitated to the SFA to learn more of the technical skills. And I think both organizations balance each other very, very well.
Definitely. So Ron and Buddy, do you have any advice as Joey and Stephanie get more and more into their careers?
Well, the stone industry, and I may be wrong, but I think it's very unique in that it's filled with passion. And it's a huge family. The people move around, whether they're sales reps, whether they're fabricators, but they don't leave the industry. It's still, for me, after 30 years, incredibly rewarding, especially when a job goes well. Sometimes when there are mistakes or errors, the challenge becomes looking better because of how you handle the error than if it never happened at all. But the stone industry it's so rewarding when you finish a job, when you're introduced to a new stone. I mean, Buddy, how many times have you been asked, what's your favorite stone? And it's a question you cannot answer because it changes every week. When you go to the quarries, when you go to that Henro quarry on the SFA Italy tour, I tell people that's as close to God as you can get without dying.
Yeah.
It's so breathtaking, overwhelming. And you realize you wake up in the morning, and my pitch to all of the attendees of that tour, I would stand there at breakfast and I would say, at this point in time, you're wondering why marble is so expensive. At dinner tonight, you're going to wonder how is it so cheap? When you see
Yeah.
what goes into taking a block of marble out of a mountain and then down that mountain and into the processing factory, cut into slabs, polished, bundled, put in a container, and sent to America, how do they do it for $15 to $30 a foot? How? But that's the stone industry. And the passion around the world is the same. The stone business is, once you're in it, you can't get out.
You're absolutely right. How does it get to the countertop so inexpensively? When you look at as you said, the core, you're standing in a quarry, whether it's in Italy or Minnesota or, wherever it might be, or Stony Creek, Connecticut. How does it get there? And you look at it, and it's just amazing of the process that goes through and how far back that they've been using, yeah, using stone as as a building material. I'm going to be presenting at coverings on green principles, natural stone and green principles, the CEU for the design folks. And, one of my slides just has a picture of the church down the street. And we talk about, and everybody's got one of these 400-year-old churches in their neighborhood, no matter where they live. And it's not going anywhere. You want to talk about sustainability and just how amazing it is to do that and to, get it from a hole in the ground to on the church, on the countertop, slice it up, to like 3/4 of an inch or 1.25 inches thick. How does that happen? I remember, back when I was in Houston in the 80s, and I thought it was so amazing because when I would meet someone and they'd say, well, what do you do for a living? And I'd go out and I'd point to one of the high rises in downtown and say, you see that building? I put the stone on the side of it. And I'd nod my head up and down like, yeah, I'm a badass and stuff. And then I continue to say, like, nobody ever hit that light switch and said, wow, the lights just turned right on when I did that. But they walk into their house and they look at that counter and say, wow, that stone is beautiful. Even back in the day when the counters were all the salt and pepper classic granites, they said, that stone is beautiful. That's amazing. They never said, oh, the water comes right out of the faucet. So we were always a focal point. And, having Mrs. Smith or Mrs. Jones say, beautiful, beautiful work was the gratification I got and kept me there. My friend Bobby Zavagno said, we either got into this because of our family or we fell into it somehow. I might have been the only person who sat with his guidance counselor in high school and said, what do you want to be when you grow up? I said, well, maybe I want to be president of all the stoners. So, actually happened. But, so that's kind of a backtrack joke. I don't think I actually said that to my guidance counselor, but it was
thought
kind
about
of a high
it.
school priority at the time. But anyway, really, the uniqueness of it is really what has kept me there. I've been frustrated at times, because of the challenges that we go through. And there's always seems to be something new. In recent years, the moisture in the quartzites and the internet, it kind of blurs the sense of expectation. And, old guys like myself and Ron, we might not be listened to as much by the younger consumer anymore, but in many cases, we still are. And I love that part of it.
Yeah, I agree. I think the stone industry is a family, and I've been fortunate to be a part of it too. And I kind of stumbled into stone world almost 30 years ago, which is crazy to think. But I wouldn't want to be anywhere else either. And I'm happy to call all of you my friends, and I appreciate you taking the time to talk with me. And before we close, I just want to know if anybody has anything else they'd like to add.
No, I would like to take a moment and thank Stone World Magazine for everything you've done for the industry. And congratulations on your recent award. You deserve it.
Oh. Well, thank you, Ron. We appreciate it. But you know what it is? It's a teamwork too. We wouldn't be what we are unless we had industry people like you who are willing to talk and contribute and share your stories and knowledge. So we all win. But we appreciate it, and we really value all our partnerships and relationships with all of you.
Yeah, Jen. Well, well deserved on that. I can't think of anybody else, who would be more deserving of that, a career award for the trade show for covering.
Well, thank you. I was honored when Jamie told me I was nominated, and I didn't think they'd nominate someone like you think it would be somebody else. So yeah, it meant a lot, and to see all my cheerleaders, really, I felt the love. So that's why I enjoy the most of what I do.
Perfect.
All right, everyone. Well, I appreciate your time, and I'll see you all soon.